This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your source for the latest Iowa ag news headlines right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, Mark Magnuson, and Andy Peterson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Riley.
Good day and welcome to Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Riley Smith. Hopefully everybody avoided most of the storm damage last night. Thoughts and prayers out to everyone in Northwest Iowa, North Iowa in general, as that storm tore across there, left a little bit of damage. We're still waiting to hear most of the reports on that, but we are still so glad you can join us for today's show. In today's episode, I will be talking with Southern Iowa agronomist for LG Seeds, Bryant Luers, as we talk about tar spot. The presence of that actually could be elevated from the rain that we just got and now the cooler temperatures that we are about to see. We'll also have a check of the closing markets with the folks from agmarket.net. But first, here's my conversation with Bryant Luers, LG Seeds agronomist in Southern Iowa. Bryant, it's been a great crop season so far. Could you tell us a little bit about kind of the challenges that tar spot has posed in your area?
Absolutely. And thanks for having me on. You know, tar spot's been one of those real hot button issues across much of the Corn Belt, really, for the last 5+ years. And this year's no different. So, you know, if we look at what we're seeing so far, I would say pressure right now is minimal, but it's definitely ramping up because of the weather patterns we've had recently. So I would say it's something we need to be on the lookout here for the next, 2-3 weeks, and especially moving into fall, because the past few years, especially if I look back at last year, it really came in late and it decimated some of the late grain fill.
And I would say the story of this year for the crop season has been phenomenal weather, especially here in Iowa. We've gotten timely rains. The temperatures haven't been too bad. Obviously, Mother Nature's trying to prove us wrong this week. But in general, when it comes to tar spot, what weather conditions are the most favorable for the spread of that happening?
So there's a couple different things we look for in order to have tar spot really ramp up and spread. Number one, it's a little cooler temperatures. So, you don't want those 95-degree days. You want some days in the 80s and then getting down in the 70s and even into the 60s at night, which if we look at the last, especially week and a half, 2 weeks here, we've got a lot of that. The other thing is extended leaf wetness. So that can come from a couple different things. It can be rainfall, which we've gotten. It could be high humidity, which we've gotten. It could be fog in the morning, which we've had all three of those over the last week and a half, right? So I would say conditions are very, very favorable right now for tar spot to really hit us pretty hard.
And then I know there's a lot of management practices that can help fight against tar spot. Hybrid selection is really at the top of that, making sure you have strong genetics. When it comes to that hybrid selection, what should farmers look for to make sure they are prepared to kind of combat tar spot?
You're absolutely correct. Hybrid selection is your number one line of defense. Obviously there's other things we can do on the back end with fungicide applications. But when it comes to really putting our best foot forward to protect ourselves against tar spot at the beginning of the year, it starts with hybrid selection. There is a huge difference between tolerances of tar spot on hybrids. And I know here at LG Seeds, we've done an excellent job over the past 5+ years of rating those products very vigorously before they come out of our research and breeding program. And so just be aware of that when you guys are making product decisions. Keep that in the back of your mind. Have those discussions with your agronomist, with your district sales manager, because they should have a pretty good idea how those products handle it. But it does make a huge difference. If I look at a product like our LG Seeds 62C73, that's kind of what's putting it on the map right now. I mean, high yields, but excellent tar spot tolerance. And, it's just something we have to have going forward of products that are good against tar spot, because it's not going anywhere, right?
Absolutely. It's one of those things we have to deal with every year. And outside of tar spot, Bryant, in Southern Iowa, how are the crop conditions looking right now?
I would say crop conditions as a whole, I would put like 80% in the good to excellent category on corn. Beans probably not quite so high. It seems like beans from day one just struggled a little bit. But if I'm looking at corn, I would say we're 80% good to excellent. Had you asked me that probably 2 weeks ago, I would have put that number a little higher. But we've had some wind events come through and, dealing with a little bit of green snap, a a little bit of root lodging, stalk lodging in places. So it's pretty pocketed. But I would say for the most part, things are looking excellent. And I don't remember being, what are we sitting July 23rd here today? I don't remember sitting in late July and having this much moisture for probably the last 5-6 years. So we're in a really good spot.
And then, of course, as we look at the 2026 crop season, now is really the time to start preparing for that. Why is that we look so far ahead at that point? And what are some of the things that you recommend farmers should be looking for as they prepare for next year already?
Yeah, so just getting a good idea what products that you want to look at for next year. I mean, now is a great time to go out and evaluate these things. We're starting to see disease show up. We're getting ear sets in a lot of areas. And so you can really start to go out and get a good visual sense of what these products are going to be. And obviously that doesn't tell the whole story, right? We'll get into harvest and we'll know a little bit more information on what actual yields are. But I think starting now is really when you need to be out there getting a good look at these products, getting a good visual feel for them, because, something might be the highest yielding, but might be terrible on tar spot or disease or have root lodging or something. And so you really do need that whole story. And this is kind of the beginning of that to get a good feel for what those products look like out in the field.
All right, Bryant, lots of great information today. For any of our farmer listeners who are watching along and would like to learn more about LG Seeds, how can they do that?
Yeah, so get in touch with us at lgseeds.com, or you could reach out to myself or any of the LG Seeds sales agronomist team, as well as the LG Seeds district sales managers. So, a good place to start would be at lgseeds.com. Go check that out. If you guys are interested in hearing more, put in a request there and somebody will be in touch with you.
Thanks again to Bryant Luers of LG Seeds for joining us today. We'll take a look at the closing market prices next, but first, here's a word from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soy Checkoff. This is Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net.
Welcome back to Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Riley Smith, and we're joined now by Cory Bratland of agmarket.net for the closing market summary. First off, Cory, what do we see going on in the grain markets today?
Hey, rather good to be with you again. Grain markets under a little bit of pressure here today. Corn and beans both started out kind of flat. Tried to trade on both sides of the board, but we had crop ratings out yesterday afternoon. Corn did lose 1% on the good to excellent, but still 73% of the crop is rated good to excellent, and that kind of compares to 68% last year. So here we are going into August. We're higher rated than what we were a year ago, and honestly, the weather looks pretty good. Soybeans, we saw a 2% uptick in crop ratings and saw them up to 70% now rated good to excellent, which is down just 1% from what we saw 1 year ago. So overall, grain markets continue their trend lower. We did have news here today that the U.S.-China trade talks sounds like they are going to halt, kind of have a truce in their tariffs amongst each other. So they're going to extend the deadline past August. So if I didn't hear the exact date, I just know that they're going to extend it out a little bit further so that they can continue to negotiate on a trade deal. So that's something that we'll see hopefully here coming down the next couple months.
And then as we were talking before we got the recording started, we had a potential derecho go across most of northern Iowa yesterday, last night into the overnight hours. And from what we've seen so far, really not too much storm damage from it. And then, of course, more rain. And like you mentioned, the amount of rain and moisture we've been getting is really kind of making it to where not much can move these markets up, right?
Yeah, the market is definitely in a downtrend. And like I say, the derecho event, kind of started in South Dakota here. We had some isolated small reports of some, big hail. We had some wind damage here and there, but again, pretty minor. A lot of the folks that I've listened to here today that we work with said that they had customers that the corn maybe was bent over a little bit, but a little different than what we saw here a few years ago at the big derecho event that went across to Iowa, where that was a little later in August. And I think many thought, the size of the ear and the weight of the ear really kind of helped make that event maybe be a little bit worse and really held the corn down. So, but overall, pretty minor damage. So very thankful for that. So we didn't see any casualties or anything major on the wind damage. A little bit here and there, but not too bad.
And then down in South America, we saw recently that Argentina is making their export tax cut permanent as the world's biggest exporter of soybean meal. That does create a little bit of a conflict for the U.S. and potentially competing with that. Do we think we're going to see any of that get factored too much into the markets? Or, of course, we know at this time of year that we're really looking at a weather marketplace.
Yeah, I think that is helping add a little pressure to this market. We're going to see anywhere from about, depending on which commodity we're talking, but anywhere from about 2-3% down to as much as 6, maybe even 7% reduction in their export tariffs. So I think down there, Javier, their president, wants to lower it and get more competitive, and not would be so reliant on the farmers down in Argentina to get their tax-based revenue. So, but yeah, like I say, ultimately it's still the weather. The funds continue to hold a fairly neutral position on soybeans, and I think it's so hard, Riley, to tell to predict how big of this soybean crop is until we actually get through the month of August and see, do we get the rains, do we warm up, do we dry out, really what does happen. Where corn, we feel like we've got a pretty good sized corn crop now. It's just a function of, okay, is it close to trend line, is it 3-4 bushels above, so we're down here just to kind of sorting out the last few things on this corn crop.
Then over on the livestock side of things, how did cattle and hogs trade today?
Yeah, cattle had another higher move up here today. So they kind of, after the bullish cattle and feed report last Friday, we were up real big yesterday on live cattle and the feeder cattle, but they kind of backed off a little bit. So it goes welcome with a little selling. So we did see they were talking some higher cash this week, but we end up around $1.50 to $2 higher on the live cattle, with same way with the feeders, close to $3 higher. So again, we're at all-time record highs. Hogs market seems to be kind of stalling out. We kind of plateaued here. We had that run up to about $1.13, broke down to $1.02. Now we're back up to this $1.09 level, which is about a 62% technical retracement level. So we're starting to find some resistance. Kind of hearing, cash hogs are a little bit weaker. So overall, I think these hogs are kind of they're well overbought, so they're probably due for a little correction in here.
All right, Cory, lots of great information today. For anyone who would like to get in touch with agmarket.net, how can they do that?
Yeah, the easiest, just head on over to our website, which is agmarket.net, and you can get a hold of us there with our toll-free number or reach out to us via email.
All right, Cory, thanks again for your time as always, and we look forward to talking again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Riley.
Thanks again to the folks at agmarket.net for joining us as always. We'll take a look at the closing market prices through the market window at iowaagnet.com. September corn down 4.5 at $3.89 1/4. August soybeans down 7 even at $9.81 3/4. August soybean meal down 3.20 at $261.70. Soybean oil up 99 cents at $57.54. Chicago wheat down 8 3/4 at $5.29 3/4. Kansas City hard red wheat down 7.5 at $5.18 1/2. Spring wheat down 3 even at $5.38 even. September oats down 3/4 cent at $3.69 even. On the Merc, August live cattle up $1.85 at $229.72. August feeders up $2.67 at $336.20. August lean hogs down $1.27 at $107.25. That's been a check of the closing market prices, and that also brings us to the end of today's episode of Ag Matters PM. You can find all of our content on our website at iowaagnet.com. Also follow us on social media at Facebook, X, LinkedIn, and TikTok, and find our video content as well as previous episodes of AM PM on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to see when those videos go live. Check out as well our free morning, midday, and closing market podcasts, as well as the Iowa Ag Matters podcast and Pods of Potential. Find those on your favorite podcasting services at Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and Podbean. From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, I'm Riley Smith. On behalf of Ashton Jolly, Mark Magnuson, Andy Peterson, and Dustin Huffman, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.